a mythical land that was the cradle of modern human advancement and the origin of people who later became known as gods and superior beings. In Edgar Cayce's belief, many modern humans were at least in one of their past lives citizens of Atlantis. The oldest writings about Atlantis come from Plato, written nearly 2,500 years ago. His descriptions were derived from the writings of Solon, a well-known Greek statesman related to Plato on his mother's side. It is said that Solon's manuscripts came into Plato's possession through a series of events, and part of them concerned Solon's journey to Egypt, where he met an Egyptian priest in a city west of the Nile Delta in ancient Egypt. Their philosophical discussions led to the destiny of mankind, and the Egyptian priest explained that what modern humans know is not the complete story of human fate. He spoke of a land that was once the cradle of civilization and a center of human progress, but was destroyed and submerged underwater around 9,000 years before Solon's time. Since then, hundreds and thousands of books and writings about Atlantis have been recorded by people who believe they have found the location of this land in the Atlantic Ocean or a lesser-known part of the Earth, or by spiritual leaders with otherworldly beliefs who sought to acquire extraordinary powers attributed to the people of Atlantis. This book is one of the most important writings about the remnants of Atlantis, and the author discusses the many similarities between the ancient civilizations of Egypt and the indigenous peoples of Central and South America. The conclusion is that both groups on the east and west sides of the Atlantic Ocean were the descendants of the inhabitants of Atlantis, and their ancestors managed to reach neighbouring lands after the destruction of Atlantis. We've spoken about Cayce before, and you can find the link to the video series in the description of this video to learn more about his methods and readings. The institute that publishes Cayce's works released this book compiling his readings on Atlantis. Cayce, who believed in a form of reincarnation, explained to about 700 out of the 1,600 people he read for that at least one of their past lives had been spent in Atlantis, and their activities at that time influenced their current life after reincarnation. These readings took place between 1923 and 1944, over nearly 21 years. Despite the time differences between these readings, the definitions and descriptions Cayce provided about Atlantis were consistent and depicted various events that took place in the land from different perspectives. According to Cayce's readings, many souls who had previously been in Atlantis once or more have reincarnated in the present day, mostly in America. These individuals, with their ideas, inventions, and innovations, have been the driving force behind America's prosperity and progress over the past century, particularly in technology. However, alongside their desire for advanced technology, they brought with them selfishness, arrogance, a desire for slavery, and destructive tendencies. According to Cayce, they seem to be repeating the experience of Atlantis, an experience that led to the destruction of that land. And if control of affairs remains in their hands, the Earth could face destruction once again. In Cayce's readings, instead of a single destruction as depicted in Plato's writings, there are at least 3 catastrophic events or phases of destruction over different periods. The first destruction occurred about 52,000 years ago, the second around 30,000 years ago, which caused the unified land of Atlantis to break into several islands, and the final destruction happened around 12,000 years ago, after which Atlantis was completely obliterated, likely the event Plato mentioned, according to Solon's writings. The thousands of years between each phase of destruction gave the inhabitants of Atlantis time to reach neighbouring lands, such as Europe, Africa, and America, and establish branches of their civilization in these lands. In Cayce's readings, similar to the cases reviewed in the first part of the video, the indigenous people of Central and South America, as well as the Hopi people and the native inhabitants of the Pyrenees Mountains, are introduced as descendants of the Atlanteans. Similarly, the advanced civilization of ancient Egypt is attributed to the interaction of native people with Atlantean migrants in Egypt. It is even mentioned that Alexandria and its great library were built on the remains of a library constructed by the Atlanteans over 12,000 years ago. A significant portion of Cayce's readings concern individuals who, in their previous lives, were among the Atlantean migrants to Egypt. Additionally, there is a figure who is considered a previous incarnation of Cayce himself, a priest by the name Ra-Ta, who is believed to have come from Persia to Egypt. In one of Cayce's readings, it is mentioned that between 12,000 to 13,000 years ago, during the period of Atlantis' final destruction, a group of people from the Carpathian Mountains attacked and conquered Egypt. Although the Carpathian Mountains are in modern-day Europe, these people were called Parthians, a group of ancient Persians, led by an individual named Arat. According to Cayce, the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx were built during the reign of Arat's son, Ara-Art. The question of how far the borders of ancient Persia extended 12,000 years ago needs further exploration. Yet, one of the Parthians who entered Egypt after its conquest was a priest named Ra-Ta, whom Cayce identified as himself in one of his past lives. Initially, Ra-Ta sought to teach spiritual matters to the people, and his teachings gained many followers. However, after joining the native Egyptians in their rebellion against the rulers, Ra-Ta was exiled for 9 years to a place called Abyssinia, which is modern-day Ethiopia. This situation changed with the arrival of Atlanteans, who managed to escape the destruction of their homeland. Especially shortly before the complete destruction of Atlantis, the rulers of Egypt faced a massive wave of immigrants who were far more advanced than the native Egyptians, and soon after, the relationship between the two groups began to deteriorate. It became clear that with their advanced technology, the Atlanteans could easily annihilate the people and rulers of Egypt. It is said that Ra-Ta was the only one who could communicate with these newcomers and establish order and peace in the region. Therefore, he was called back from exile, and as expected, Ra-Ta united the various groups and, with the cooperation of the Egyptian rulers, the Atlanteans, and the local people, initiated an era of progress and the development of human civilization in Egypt. He established special temples that served as schools and universities, as well as hospitals and centers for treating mental illness. The greatest benefit was to those who were referred to as things, and were considered to be beings with very low human capacities who served as slaves in Atlantis. These individuals, by being in Ra-Ta's special temples and benefiting from the knowledge that the Atlanteans brought with them to Egypt, were able to overcome their physical and psychological limitations and live better lives compared to their time in Atlantis. It is also mentioned that after the establishment of these temples, more Persians travelled to Egypt and were among those who were trained in Ra-Ta's great temple, known as the Temple of the Sun. One of the things Ra-Ta did after becoming acquainted with the Atlanteans was to travel to the land of Atlantis with a group of companions, visiting islands that were in their final days and would soon sink beneath the waves. During this journey, they were able to bring back a significant portion of the written works of the Atlanteans to Egypt, which laid the foundation for creating an advanced civilization in Egypt, particularly in the areas of human history, the movement of stars, and constellations. According to one of the readings, Ra-Ta, using the writings obtained from Atlantis, was able to find ancient monuments and pyramids that had been built in much older historical periods in Egypt. Pyramids that predated the ones we see in Egypt today, although no evidence of these much older cultures exists now. The writings that Ra-Ta brought from Atlantis to Egypt were hidden by order of the ruler of Egypt at a later time, and according to Cayce, they are now located in a secret chamber beneath the Sphinx. This is not the only chamber beneath the Sphinx. Cayce's readings also mention several chambers containing artifacts from Atlantis, one of which, known as the Temple of Gold, is located in the Gobi Desert in present-day Mongolia and China, a location where ancient Aryan artifacts have been found. Regarding the time when these special hidden chambers will be discovered, one of the readings states that the land of Atlantis will rise again from beneath the water, and at that time, the Hall of Records will be found in 3 places: Egypt, Yucatan in Mexico, and the land of the Aryans. Of these 3, the only one we cannot locate is the land of the Aryan, which, if we follow the meaning of the words, could very well be today's Iran. Another indication that links Atlantis to the Persians and could raise more questions and conspiracy theories. Something we are planning to uncover in upcoming videos.